Welcome to GRACEPILLED, where we explore the infinitude of God by talking about God, within God, a.k.a. interviews with people spanning the full spectrum of the spiritual path. My name is Hanna, and I will be your guide. I've been studying and practicing in a classical Shakta tantric tradition since 2015, and I just love exploring all of the ways that God wakes up within her own dream. For the past few years, I've been working professionally as a guide, doing one-on-one work and also giving talks and courses. If you ever want to chat with me, you can book a call with me on my website or join my Patreon, which is my massive library of Q&A sessions and spiritual talks spanning everything from traditional tantric philosophy to how to spiritualize your experience of your emotions, okay? So we cover a lot of material. If you want to support the podcast, I have a $5 tier that you can use as a tip jar for the show, and I would love to have your support. And before I introduce our guest, I just want to say, this is the last episode of season 1. It has been so amazing to connect with so many cool people, to share all of these stories and prop them up. There have been people on the show who have told me that they've been getting clients, they've had people signing up for their programs, people buying their book. I'm like so stoked to prop people up. So that has been amazing. And also just to learn how to do this podcasting thing. It's been something that people have been asking me to do for years. And so I learned how to do it. And so season 1 was kind of an experiment, okay? And season 2 is cooking, okay? So there's going to be a season 2. It'll be more conversational than this season, like the Yapcast episodes that I did with Monica. And also I'll be inviting people on to interview me, okay? I already have several people who suggested that they would like to do it. Because I got some feedback that the people would like to hear from me more. And that's really interesting for me to hear because I actually think I might be a little bit too good at my job. Like too good at being an interviewer. I truly try to keep myself invisible for the most part. I mean, sometimes I'll pipe in, but I really want the focus to be on the guest when I'm interviewing someone. And sometimes that comes from my own experience being interviewed where I've had like a bad interviewer who's just yapping about themselves the whole time. And I'm like, what are we doing here? I thought you invited me onto your show. And so I don't know what that is. Maybe that's my projectorness coming through and saying what's best. But, it's like, I think I'm just too good at my job. And, that's a good skill. I use it with people one-on-one, just really focusing on people. But we're going to switch it up next season. And I also might do some solo casting, just stuff of me speaking alone. And of course, maybe 2 or 3 more spiritual biographies, but from like really choice people. Like I'm going to find some like choice stories to tell. Super juicy stories. So I'm only going to have a spiritual biography in the season 2 if it's a good story. So, I'm not sure when it's all going to be published, maybe early winter, maybe early 2026, but I would like to record things in advance and then schedule it out. That would be my ideal situation. But I promise you, dear listener, there will be more GRACEPILLED. And now, let's get into the final episode of season 1. So today, I got to sit down with my former Naropa University professor, Ramon Parish, who is truly one of those people that makes you feel like the conversation could go anywhere. And it does. I had to reel it in a little bit when we were talking. He's a poet, a philosopher, a teacher, and recently published a book of poetry called The Drama of the Planets under a pen name, Uriel Jones. The cover of the book is so cool. I encourage you to not only buy it, but just look at the cover. Now, like I said, Ramon was my professor in college at Naropa University in Boulder, Colorado, which is a Buddhist-inspired university with like 400 people. And we mentioned this a few times throughout the conversation. It was really cool to interview him about his life path because I've always admired him and his perspective on life. He was my capstone advisor my senior year. And I have so many memories of sitting in his office and just like ideating about philosophy or just like talking about Star Trek or something. I always felt like there was some sort of like philosophical spark between us. It's like when 2 people come together, it's like, oh, we could go anywhere. And then like we do. And so it was really cool to switch things up a bit. Like teachers and professors can be a bit mysterious. They're so invested in your learning, but you never get to hear about them. in their life. And so, I'm always like the therapy client who's like, well, what about you? I'm always with like the professors in college. I'm like, who are you? So it was truly an honor to get a window into his life path. And in this episode, we talk about what it means to treat philosophy itself as a spiritual practice, how poetry can serve as a soul language. That was really interesting. And the tension between tradition and adaptation in modern spiritual life. Ramon also shared the story of his early visionary experiences at like age 10, the role of community and conduct in genuine spirituality, and how music and mythology have shaped the way that he sees the cosmos. So, this conversation is both grounded and expansive. We touch on social justice, creativity, lineage, and the mystery of why the heck we're all here. And I think you're going to come away from this episode with like a deeper sense of how spirituality can be lived not only in meditation halls or monasteries, but also in our relationships, in our art, and the way that we move through the world. And I just love that. Ain't that the thing I'm always yammering on about? So enough of this very long introduction. Let's get into the episode. Okay. Hi, Ramon.
Hey,
It's so nice to see you again.
me too.
Welcome to GRACEPILLED.
Right.
So, to get started today, we're going to go into your spiritual biography. But I'm just wondering, like, is there anything recent in your life, like a win that you're proud of, like something that's going really well or that you're feeling really good about?
Sure. I think I have two. Um, the first is that we, as of yesterday, we just helped my youngest son move into his freshman dorm.
Oh, cool. Where is he going to school?
He's up at CU.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. So he's staying close to home.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Yeah. Yeah. But still a significant shift for him, a significant shift for us. Yeah. So that's happening. Like all that was happening yesterday.
Wait, so did you
and
say
today.
your oldest kid?
My youngest?
Your youngest? Oh, so is he like it's the end? It's the end. So to
He,
speak.
it is the symbolic end. The
Mhm.
actual end is
Yeah,
is coming. The actual end is a process. But
exactly.
the symbolic end. Yeah.
Wow. Oh my God.
Yeah.
So that was yesterday?
Yesterday and
What?
today, and yeah, this like yesterday was the like official day, and then this whole week we're kind of getting him in there.
Yeah.
So that's one that's huge, and then this is the other one, and maybe this will factor more into the spiritual biography piece. I, over my sabbatical, published a small book of poetry under the pen name Uriel Jones. It's called Drama of the Planets.
I love that cover.
Yeah, this cover is by Joshua Mays. He's a muralist from Oakland Oakland, Denver, and this is like fingernail of his work. You should look him up.
It's like Mobius.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, that like comic
That
book.
sci-fi artist.
Yeah.
But it's like it looks exactly like that. It's so cool.
Yeah, should look into his work. Joshua Mays, amazing
Oh,
stuff.
cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. I mean, this is going to be mostly audio, but I'll share that image of your book and all of that stuff. It's really cool.
Sure.
Wherever I can. Cool. Okay. So wait, when did that publish? Like, what did you say?
So that officially released on the spring equinox of 2025.
Oh, cool. Awesome. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, wait. Should I ask you about your pen name now, or will that come up later?
Either way, we could go either way.
Well, I just want to know now. So why did you choose that pen name?
So the pen name comes from actually when I was an undergraduate, or roughly around the time I was an undergraduate college student, my early 20s, basically. And it was just a name that I thought to myself. I'd never spoken to anyone else, really, until many years later. But at that time, it was like I would say to myself, "Oh, this is like Uriel Jones doing this writing." And the poems are all basically from that period. They're from like this early. Hold on a second. Voyager. That's my son leaving right now.
Oh, cute.
Um, so yeah, the poems are all from this early period of like my early adulthood. And I don't know if it was an awakening experience, a visionary experience, something like that, initiatory experience that I had at that time. And, and they've just been sitting around for a long time. And then over the sabbatical, I actually had time, and periodically I would revisit them. And I was like, wow, like, there's actually something here. And so,
Something held up.
well, something held up, but yeah, definitely held up. But also, I was like, I think these writings are worth more than just my personal reflection. I think they are
Totally.
shareable writings, and they're. I've changed a lot since I wrote them, but fundamentally, as like a kind of mythic structure for how I see a lot of the world and how I see a lot of my inner world, they're still pretty sound. So yeah, put them together, and it's the hopefully the first in a few poetry books.
Oh, cool. Wait, so is it all the stuff that you wrote back then, or did you update anything, or is there anything new in there?
Almost all of it is stuff that I wrote back then. I made very minor changes in to the actual poems recently, and the actual compiling of them and like setting them into a narrative order. Like I knew it was a book when I was 22,
Hmm.
and I knew what the title was. It was Drama of the Planets.
Whoa.
But instead of, well, and we can backtrack in biography and talk about some of this stuff, but I knew what the title was. I knew, I would say probably about 70% of the poems that ended up in this final piece. But then I kind of composed them into a 3-part. It's the book's got 3 chapters, and putting them in that order, and yeah, relating them to one another was a whole other creative process that I really didn't anticipate. So mostly it is what it is, and I even the foreword to the book. If anyone hears this and should purchase the book, or if you should, the foreword to the book is really important because some of the language is dated, some of it is politically questionable, and I chose to leave it,
Yeah,
with
totally.
that, with the preface that some of it's dated,
Mhm.
but yeah, most of it was written then and stayed
Cool.
as it was.
Cool. Yeah. So it's like looking back at a period of time
Yeah,
as close to the reality as possible.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Hmm.
What's interesting is I titled the last poem in the book. It didn't have a title originally. I titled it Retrospective Prospectus.
Oh.
And so like a retrospective is like in an artist's work, it's like when you look over a period, and a
Mhm.
prospectus is like a business proposal. It's like, so it's like kind of both at the same time.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I like that. Okay, well, that's really exciting. I'm definitely going to get your book, of course. Absolutely. And this is a little preview of like the drama of the planets. You were in college and you came up with that name. And so I'm already curious like what was on your mind then? And so let's start with how would you describe your spiritual path, your spirituality if you could give it a name or any sort of a title?
I think if I'll give a just a call. I'll throw a couple names out there. I consider myself to be a philosopher, and I consider philosophy not necessarily in its Western continental sense, but I consider philosophy as a spiritual path.
Hmm.
Um, and I consider myself, I would say that I'm a stargazer. And I think that's kind of almost as like a native, like soul inclination. I just look up to the sky, and I think I look up in a listening way. Um, I would say I would use the word cosmic. And I think about cosmos in the old sense of like there's the vault of heaven above our heads, and then there's the earth underneath and around us. And so we're like in this circle, this of universe. And then we are in a relationship with that circle. Um,
Relational cosmology.
yeah,
That's not the
yeah,
right way to put it.
yeah, sort of,
Maybe.
or the attempt at it.
Yeah.
And then I'm working with the term in the movement Afrofuturist or Afrofuturism lately. Sometimes I substitute it for ancient futurism, depending on, I guess, who
Mm.
I'm working with. Um, but Afrofuturism, I really see as not only a contemporary iteration of like Black liberation, but I see it as a kind of, I think the way that it was originally intended was as a kind of mystery school for African descendant people.
Mm.
Um, and in some ways, strangely enough, I kind of consider myself a Christian as well, in a way, and that might be, we could speak about that in real
Totally.
biographical terms, but yeah, in a way, not in a way that I think most people would recognize, but
Yeah, I'd be interested to hear more about that for sure.
totally,
I've had a lot of kind of heretical Christians on the podcast so far, so
yeah,
I'd
totally.
be interested to hear that. So you feel you're a philosopher, you're a stargazer, relational cosmologist,
hmm Something like that. Yeah.
Afrofuturist, or ancient futurism, and then there's some Ramon flavored Christianity in there.
Yeah. Some, alchemical, animistic,
Yeah.
like African Rastafari-ish
Mm-hmm.
Christianity.
Mm-hmm. Totally. Well, are there any like specific like lineages or traditions or practices that you've learned throughout your life or have been drawn to?
Yeah. Um, yeah, that's a great question. I feel like that's the part that I guess maybe I have to dig a little bit there
Yeah,
because I mean, I think one practice is philosophy,
totally. No, that's legit for sure.
you know, like I think about I like thinking as a spiritual practice, you know, as a spiritual process and as a spiritual practice, like rigorous thinking,
Uh-huh.
and questioning your assumptions and
Mhm.
trying to create coherent meaning structures.
Mhm.
Um, I think poetry is a practice. And for my early adulthood, especially, poetry was my principal spiritual practice. Trying to articulate the things that were taking place in the inner world and things I was observing in the outer world and questions and struggles that I had and that I saw other people having,
Mhm.
trying to articulate them into um, evocative speech. Um,
Like the whole process of putting something together in that way
yeah,
is the practice.
yeah, the whole
Mhm.
process, like the meditation on it, the listening for it, the writing, the tweaking, the sharing,
Mhm.
all of that.
Oh yeah, the sharing.
The
Because
sharing.
maybe some stuff comes up there around
Yeah,
wanting to share or not, or being heard. I don't know.
totally.
What do you think?
No, I mean, I used to read up on this spoken word school, the New Yorkian Poets Cafe, and their whole deal was like a poem isn't completed until it's read, until it's spoken.
Ooh, I like
It
that.
has to be uttered.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah.
That's inspiring. Cool.
Yeah. So that, and then, you know, I've been influenced into meditation, sitting meditation practices through Naropa.
Mhm.
Um, and definitely was not a home practice for me. Another practice that I've engaged in is like a variant, a static dance and movement
Mm-hmm.
practice. The Soma Source is the technical kind of group or lineage that I've been working with. That's Melissa Michaels' work out of Boulder, and her work fuses a lot of different practices, 5 rhythms. It fuses some like Rudolf Steiner's anthroposophy. It fuses some of like Sri Aurobindo and the Mother's integral yoga, somatic psychology. So that's a specific practice that I worked with that's really been super generative in my life. Um, and that actually helped me prepare for sitting meditation, because when I was younger, sitting meditation was out of the question.
Because your body needs to get worked before you can sit still.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
completely agree with that.
Yeah. And even my emotions, I had a lot of emotions
Oh,
I needed to
totally.
move. Yeah.
Oh, that's so wise.
Mm.
Oh, I totally feel that. Yeah, because a lot of people want to do sitting practice and then they're assaulted by their emotions.
Mm-hmm.
And it's okay to like have avenues to like get that shit out
Yeah.
before you sit. I think that's like, and even with traditional postural yoga,
Yeah.
yogis in monasteries would do asana before meditation.
Right.
Right?
Exactly.
It's like this is not just like it's like multiple traditions recognize
That's right.
that.
That's right. And it's like also too, I think, an approach to meditation where it isn't about zoning out of your body.
Mm-hmm.
It isn't about numbing yourself out. It isn't about just going into some like absent space. It's about zoning into your body, and it's about zoning into your thought processes and zoning into your feelings, and then starting to find the spaces in there and allowing whatever it is that comes up to come up, be noticed, and continue to move on, you know? And when I first encountered meditation, of course, I had no teachers. I was just looking at books and I was misunderstanding what I was reading, you know? And I was just like, so you just sit there and try to breathe? And I was just like, this is stupid. I don't get it.
All
So,
right.
yeah,
Right.
took
Right.
years of movement practice and
Did you
healthy
feel a
emotional.
call to start sitting at some point?
No, not externally. It's just that as I entered into Naropa, that practice was available and was
100%.
taught to me, and then I was receptive by the time
That makes sense.
I made it there.
Totally. Totally. Yeah, it's hard to get away from it.
Yeah, sure. Oh, we haven't done our job if we haven't shared some aspect of that with students.
100%. 100%.
But I found too, and it's still a constant learning, that I think the students actually need other things like postural yoga and creative expression and movement.
A basketball team.
Yeah, sure, totally. In order to be ready for the meditation. And I mean, I think that's historically how these things were taught. They weren't taught as isolated practices. They were taught as like integrated gymnastics, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, and I also feel like at least in American culture, it's such a sedentary culture.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so it's like we're already like the average person is already a bit wound up internally because there's just not moving enough, so it's like read the room. It's like we need to move around and then we can do contemplative sitting practice. I don't know, that's just my opinion.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we're indoors a lot.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and also I mean like the cultural context of yogis meditating 1500 years ago in the whole subcontinent of India is very different than, kids at Naropa learning how to meditate. I don't feel like I really heard a lot about that when I was at school. Like the difference of the cultural milieu back then and now, and how maybe things should be adjusted.
Totally.
To what's relevant. I don't know. What do you think about that?
I mean, I think that was originally what the founders of Naropa were doing. I think the Shambhala practice is as jacked up as that lineage has shown itself to be, and I think it's important that we name that. Their original intent was to try to, in my opinion, shift the traditional Tibetan and in some cases Japanese teachings for, I believe, a middle class white and Jewish audience, and the particular types of like the neurotic style of that group of people in the 1970s. Right. And we share some of that context, right? That was the beginning of the electronic age, right? That was the first generation that grew up with television and radio and had the kind of McLuhan expanded nervous system. Um, but I think the teachings have to keep changing in terms of their delivery, and that isn't always emphasized or even recognized. And now our context is, it's not the 70s. We're dealing with phones and social media on top of television and radio, and you're not dealing with a largely or exclusively white audience or white group of practitioners. So, stuff's changed. Context changes, and teachings have to be tetrised so that they can fit the need of people.
Yeah, wow. Well, we could totally go off on a tangent on this right now because I would want to hear like this whole idea of maintaining tradition. Like I almost have this image of like the power of traditional lineages being something that's like a pole, or like it's like something that's very solid that's moving through space, but then there's stuff around it that needs to be adapting.
Mm-hmm.
And something that I'm really fascinated by is the idea of like how do we maintain the structural integrity of the tradition while also adapting to what the moment is calling for, and like what does that call for, like what sort of types of people need to be making decisions, or how do we make decisions in that way, like without losing that integrity. And so I could go off on a tangent on that. Maybe we should. What do you think?
Yeah, we could go off on a tangent, or maybe we could come back to it. Either way.
Yeah. Let me I'm just going to write a little note.
Okay.
About tradition, and then maybe we'll come back to that. But yeah, so yes. So I really want to know, how did we get here? Okay, because you're faculty at Naropa still. You're wearing your Naropa shirt. So
Yep.
Okay. And how did we get here? Like, did you always have a spiritual impulse like from a very, very young age, or did it come on in your teens or 20s? Like, take me to the beginning of your spiritual life.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, I think the beginning, my mother had some early stories about me saying I was from the galaxies when I was like 3.
Really?
Yeah. And she was like, I had to like prove that you were an Earth person by showing you your birth certificate, which she says I was very upset by that.
Whoa.
And then I think I always had a huge like imagination, but the beginning in terms of my conscious life, I think it was my 10th birthday. I walked outside. We were waiting to go out to dinner. And I'm a December baby. I walked outside. It was dark. I was like chipping ice with the heel of my little cowboy boot. And I looked up and I saw like the Orion constellation and all the stars kind of in that area. And I just had a moment of like, it was like a wordless, thoughtless, like, and the feeling that came out of that was like the clock is now ticking, basically. Like you're now, it's on now.
That
Like
was looking back on it, you can feel that's what was going on, or did you conceptualize that at that age?
at that age, the feeling I had is it's like it was kind of like begin.
Ooh. Begin what?
Well, it was kind of like you're responsible now, or like you're the thing that you came to do. You begin now. Like your time now. Time is moving, and like and this is kind of what I was saying about the stargazing. Like, I think my first religious impulse, spiritual impulse, is feeling that relationship with the stars, and like feeling like I had a feeling of being witnessed.
Like something was gazing down on you.
Like I was looking up and I
Yeah,
was,
and something was looking back.
yeah.
Oh, something sentient. Like, like something is there, like undeniably there.
Yeah, like I mean, deniably, undeniably, it's like walking into a forest, and after a while, you have a feeling of being watched.
Oh. Uh-huh.
You know,
Uh-huh.
like you feel you're looking, and then you feel a reciprocal. Like the trees, there could be little critters in the trees, could be the eye looking structures on the trees, but you feel, and that's that was my first conscious recollection of that feeling with the stars. And, this is an ancient human perception all over the world, the feeling of the stars being in a witness position to what goes on the earth.
The words I'm looking for are like, did you feel good in that moment? Did you feel scared? Did you feel neutral? Like what was happening for you?
Well, there's no fear.
Mm-hmm.
There's no fear. There was no, it was a soundless, internally, wordless, imageless, like I think it was the kind of thing that you are listening for it in a meditative state, and it just happened spontaneously. Like, and then out of that, a feeling arose of like, now, like, now, and now, like, and then I can remember being like 14 years old and walking to school and like climbing under and over fences. And I used to have a complicated route to school. And in my head, I had the image of like a time bomb clock, like digital numbers, like
Counting down.
counting down. And I feel like the countdown began at age 10. It's like, okay, like time is.
Oh, was there the word urgency just came into my head. Was there like a feeling of urgency around it, or is it just kind of a neutral awareness of the countdown?
It was more an awareness of just like you, and I think this same feeling returned in my early adulthood around the time that I wrote Drama of the Planets, but it had narrative with it. And the feeling I had at that time was I had a lot of questions about, does God exist? Right. I got into existentialist philosophy, you know, you can't prove it. I started asking questions about um, God as presented in the Bible and as commonly held by American Christian culture. And I couldn't believe in that God anymore.
Yeah, I was gonna actually ask you, like, what was the faith of your family growing up?
Yeah, totally, totally. So I come from a born again Christian. Um, I guess nowadays people call it evangelical family. We went to church. It wasn't like a black church predominantly. It was like one of these like kind of like Christian mega churches you see on TV. In fact, they had their own TV channel. Uh,
Wait, where did you grow up?
I grew up in Colorado.
Oh, you did. Okay, yeah,
Yeah,
because I heard cowboy boots, so I was like, that could have been Colorado.
yeah, yeah.
Got it. Got it. Got it. Got it.
And I didn't, I did it. And I can remember like strange things. Like I can remember watching like there was this music video called "Pop Goes the World." I don't know who it was by. It was really corny. It's early days of MTV. And I remember listening to that song, and I thought in my head what I thought it said was "God rules the world."
Whoa.
And so I was always like curious about and listening for, and like,
Oh,
I think,
you would hear it in the noise or something. It was
well,
things would stand out to you that were related to that.
well, I misinterpreted the lyrics as saying God rules the world, you
Okay, that's
know,
fair.
and I'm just using that as a example of, you know, I had religious impulses as a child, and the church environment I was in, I was just there. It was boring, you know, church is boring for children. And then by the time I was 14 or 15, I just, I started to see the political dimension that was in the church. And, you know, I think this evangelical Christian political tradition or dimension is really strong right now in contemporary politics, and I think largely harmful. And I didn't like what I was hearing back then. And I didn't like the idea that there was an exclusive path to God. That just didn't feel true to me. It felt like, people who only spoke one language saying that their language was the best language. And people who had never traveled and met anyone who spoke a different language. And so they just assumed theirs was the only and the best. And by that time, also as a young kid, I was really interested in mythology. I started reading Greek mythology through the influence of my older siblings. And we would have discussions. We would say, hey, how come the God of the Bible is acting like Zeus?
It's a good question.
You know, like, what's up with this jealousy thing? And like, what's up with Zeus? And why is he always sleeping with all these different women and seducing and raping? And like, what the hell's going on? And like, why should we look to that figure? Like, why did this whole civilization, like, we were like in fourth and fifth grade, and we are like, you know, and then we were reading X-Men, right? I'm reading comic books, and there's these cosmic beings in the comic books, and like, so we're discussing all this stuff. We talked about the stories in the Bible. We talked about the Greek mythology. At that time, I was only studying Greek mythology. We talked about comic books and movies, and you know, that was me and my siblings. We were a thinky crew.
Yeah, rigorous thinking.
Yeah, we were into that, you know, and discussing, like, what is it, exegesis? I think that's maybe how you say it.
Exegesis.
Exegesis. Yeah,
Yeah.
we were doing that stuff as little kids, and so by
That's awesome.
we were like that, you know.
Oh, so you got the like really looking at things hard early. Like
Yeah,
you were really engaging with the material too.
yeah,
You know, I think a lot of people who grow up religious and never move away from that, people can do whatever they want, but like they're not always like really deeply engaging with the thing and asking like the questions that they don't want you to ask,
totally.
basically. I don't know. What do you think?
I mean, you know, the Bible is a deep book, and whether you believe in it or not, like, I had to come to it later on in my life as like, I'm just going to read it as a book of mythology. I'm not
Mhm.
going to believe it. I'm not going to read it as if I should believe it. I'm just going to read
Mhm.
it, and I'm just going to listen to the stories that it's telling from
Mhm.
within its own perspective as much as I can get that. And I haven't read the whole thing in its entirety, you know,
Mhm.
but you know, I spent a lot of time with Genesis. I spent a lot of time with Exodus. I spent a lot of time with the Gospels. I read the book of Revelation in college, in high school, and it scared the whew out of me. Scared the whew. I tremble when I open that. Tremble.
Whoa.
It's not,
Like
I mean,
fire and brimstone?
well, just, yeah, and like the fate of the whole world.
Oh, right. Mm-hmm.
It's really deep. And this is the other thing. As people that live in this part of the world, okay, and whether you are coming from whether your people have been colonized by European society and monotheistic and rationalistic, whatever, or whether you come from those societies, like, whatever. The fact is, because we speak the English language, the Bible substands so much of the English language. Shakespeare, the Bible, you know, all of these great books or whatever, great literature that come in the English language, and even a lot of the Romance languages. We have so many sayings that come from the Bible. And if you don't relate to that, then you're missing a lot of the poetry and the meaning behind the English language and even like the philosophical and cosmological and spiritual assumptions. You're missing it. So even if you don't agree, even if you don't believe, you don't have to believe. But I think it's important as people who are educated or thinking or critical or, investigating. I think it's important to spend some time with the Bible. Even
Yeah,
if you
because
don't
our
believe
culture
God.
is like dripping in it, whether we
Yeah.
like it or not.
Yes.
For
Yes. And I think there's certain perspectives, let's say around justice, that come from the biblical tradition. There's certain perspectives around social justice that come from the biblical tradition. Some people even say that this version of democracy comes from the biblical tradition, right? It comes from the idea that everyone is a child of God.
hmm
And so, since everyone is a child of God, and God is, as they say in the Bible, is no respecter of persons, God doesn't care about your earthly rank. God is looking inside of your soul and is not concerned about your earthly rank. That's the basis, the spiritual basis of equality between human beings, at least as far as this part of the world goes.
Totally. Yeah, it
Right?
would be cool if we lived up to that a little bit more.
Totally. Totally.
That'd be
And
cool.
totally. So I could keep going, but
Yeah. Well, that's
yeah.
so interesting. I just had a thought when you were speaking. I was thinking about how I've been in training in a classical tantric tradition
Mm.
for the last 10 years with my guru. So it's a kind of like a traditional setup. And one of the things that I've found really helpful about the kind of like yoga philosophy in general is that there are teachings.
Right.
And the teachings, like, you can actually live them and test them and see if they actually have an effect on your perception of reality or not. Like, you
Yes.
can live them. And then when you were speaking, I was thinking about how in the Christian paradigm, there's teachings as well in its own way, but it's kind of like if the whole thing is based on like you get to go to heaven, how your perception shifts in this earthly realm doesn't matter so much. And so you don't really need to test things out in your experience. You're like, oh, if I just do this right, I'm going to go to heaven. Whereas in the yogic tradition that I'm familiar with, it's like you have to test things out and see if it's true. Like, don't just believe it. You have to like do it. You know what I'm saying?
Right. And I think that's partly why a lot of the spiritual practices from Eastern philosophies and societies have taken such root here in the last 60, 70, 100 years, because a society that demands proof and evidence and needs, basically, you can't just get the math equation right. You have to show how you did it so that other people can learn. And so the way that Christianity has been presented, I think particularly Protestant Christianity, as as faith is it. It doesn't meet the need of a society that is subconsciously trained in scientific literacy. It just doesn't. You need you that's why meditation, yoga, and even in a certain degree ritual helps, like, you, because you get to test it. And it is concerned with your actual experience of consciousness in this life. And Christianity has downplayed that.
For sure. I don't think it was absent the whole time. I think
No,
it's been downplayed.
it has been. It has
Mm-hmm.
been. I think Protestant Christianity has downplayed it. Protestant Christianity shifted the focus to the individual's conversation with God. And I think it therefore laid the foundation of the spiritual, not religious. As much as they may not like this, it laid the foundation of, it is between me and that. And no one else in the world can tell me what my relationship is between me and that. Okay. And then you had religious traditions like the Quakers and stuff that they spoke about, well, there's God, there's Christ, there's the Holy Spirit. How's the Holy Spirit show up? Holy Spirit shows up as inner light. And so then the language started to change to inner light. And then, that already laid the foundation. And then when the Eastern traditions came in, right, as like Western philosophers or anthropologists and colonialists and different folks started to translate the Upanishads and that kind of thing, and they brought that literature into Germany and England and what have you. Like they already had this foundation of a spirituality that was individualized conversation between you and God as light, essentially. Okay. And so that actually set up, I think, the foundation for our current spiritual milieu, where people are seeking out these different traditions, teachings, and they feel like it's ultimately really up to me or me and that particular teacher or me and that particular lineage. It's not really about what everybody else thinks. So
Like it's an individual experiential journey that people take on. You're
that's
saying
that.
that laid the groundwork for that to be the thing people are moving towards.
Yes, yes. And the thing that people use to measure the validity of a teaching or an experience,
For sure.
right? Now, the problem is that in the destruction of ritual, which the Catholic Church was strong in, but the Protestant Church kind of destroyed it. And then, like, I think like
Mhm.
kind of the Black Baptist and Pentecostal traditions are stronger in ritual, not in ceremonial necessary, but ritual, as in like you create a situation where the Holy Spirit comes into the room and into the person. That actually is more lineage wise, I think, related to African spiritual traditions, right? But Protestant Christianity stripped it all down and made it about the individual and the word. And now what I think we have is, in a lot of our spiritual searcher, seeker, spiritual, not religious spaces, is the communal aspect of the religious experience or the spiritual experience is missing.
The religious aspect of the spiritual experience is missing.
The communal aspect of the spiritual
Oh.
experience.
Sorry, I missed you. Okay.
Yep.
The communal aspect of the spiritual experience is missing in the sense of it being a place you go and like a group of people that you're with.
Yes.
You're thinking it's a bit too individual. It's like run
Yeah.
around.
No,
I
no.
could see that.
Yep.
I could
Yeah.
see that.
Yeah. And I definitely feel like in my own spiritual life, that is something that I'm a little bit poor in. It's the
Well, I was just
community.
thinking of what you said earlier about how you were reading books about meditation. You're like, what's up with this? And there's value in being in a group and seeing other people have experiences and having someone you can ask or people in the Sangha you can speak to. Like, it's like, oh, I thought it was that. It's like that. It just like it speeds up the process if it's the
Yes.
right environment. If it's the
Yeah.
right environment.
And having people who are more experienced in that tradition and that practice that you can be in conversation with, and when you're making errors or when you're off or you have questions, you can receive some guidance.
Well, I mean, it's kind of like when you're in a romantic relationship. This is a hypothetical. It's like you're in a romantic relationship with somebody, but you never talk to your friends about anything that's going on. And you keep making bad decisions. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? I don't know if that makes any sense. Like,
Yeah.
you're not seeing things right because you're just keeping it all inside and you're not talking about what's going on in the relationship with anybody.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, this is like, I don't know. I guess I'm older now. But I as I search the interwebs and talk to people, even sometimes my own kids, that's like I'm hearing this that people don't talk about their relationships to their friends.
Totally. Totally. We can get, yeah, totally. You start like cycling in your narrow view of everything that's going on.
Yeah,
Totally.
yeah,
Well, I mean, yeah. So in the example of the relationships, it's like if you're just circling around in your own thoughts about how things are going in the relationship, you can only go so far. And you could say the same thing in spiritual concepts as well.
mm,
Potentially.
yeah,
I'm a pretty big advocate of like having qualified guidance and being in the sangha too, because if it's a whatever the community is, it doesn't have to be a sangha literally, but it's like it's really good work to be around people and work on all of the shit that comes up when you're around people. It is the best work.
yeah. I agree.
It's like being in the community and noticing who really gets on your nerves. It's like really good work. It's really good work.
Yeah, because in a way that's the ultimate test of all of it is how we treat each other.
Yes.
I mean, we have the big questions of life after death and blah blah blah, and like what is the meaning of life?
Mm.
But when you get down to it, and I feel the same way about philosophy, ultimately it's actually about conduct. And conduct isn't just what you believe and do individually, it's you're doing automatically meets the world and it meets other people. And so it's ethical, it's
Mm.
relational. That this is why justice isn't a political movement. Fundamentally, it's a spiritual reality. It's about how we meet each other. And then it gets down into the granular micro stuff with between you and other people, and how you and they show up and what your interactions create as the third person.
Yeah, I've said for a long time that I feel like consciousness and conduct should rise at the same time,
Mm-hmm.
like with each other.
Mm-hmm.
If their consciousness is rising, but the conduct isn't rising, like something's off. We need to do some adjustments or something.
Right. And then oftentimes when you have a consciousness rise and your conduct doesn't rise, it leads you into these different forms of spiritual arrogance. You know, spiritual bypass, spiritual materialism. Like, I think if you would, let's say if we translate it to the Christian idiom, like the Luciferic energy or like anthroposophies type of deal, you get arrogant, you get heady. A lot of people think about like whatever, like the whole conspiracy theory, mystery, blah, blah, school language, like the Illuminati kind of mentality of like, I'm above these people,
Totally.
you know, I know more, I'm the greater.
Totally.
Whereas again, like God is no respecter of persons. Like, and what was the commandment that Jesus said I'm adding on top of the 10 commandments is love each other, and love each other as if the other person was God.
Can we pick
Yeah,
that up again?
yeah, that's it. We pick that up again. That's it.
Can we pick that up again?
And we pick that up again.
Oh my gosh.
And
Yeah,
it's
go on.
hard. It's demanding. It takes everything you got.
No, totally. My guru is always like, if you just want to meditate on consciousness and not work on your expression as a person, just go to the monastery.
Yeah.
But if you're going to live in the world,
Yeah.
which is the harder path, it's
Yes.
easier to go to the monastery.
Yes.
You have to maybe give up on your relationships and your family and ever doing anything normal again. But it's really hard to remain wakeful in the realm of like interacting with people. It's always people that trigger us the most.
Yeah.
And so it's really hard work. But I think it's good work because it's evolutionary,
Yeah.
like really evolutionary.
Yeah.
Well, I want to get back to kind of like the timeline of your life. And so you're like 14 and you're seeing the countdown happening in your peripheral vision in some way. And you get to college. What did you study in college?
Yeah. So in college, I was a philosophy and history major, art minor, and I also studied a lot of religion officially, like in class. I studied some Hinduism, I studied some Islamic mysticism, I studied some of the spiritual traditions of the indigenous peoples of the Southwest. And then in my private time, I did a lot of study of Jungian psychology. I did a lot of study of Gnosticism. I did a lot of study of like visionary and esoteric poetry traditions. I did a lot of study of theosophy and anthroposophy, um, and the kind of Western so-called Hermetic traditions, which, if you really get into the Western Hermetic traditions, who's Hermes? Hermes is Thoth. And who's Thoth? Thoth is Tehuti. And Tehuti is the name of like basically the like Kemetic or Egyptian god of knowledge and wisdom. And so the Western mystery schools actually have their root in the Egyptian mystery schools. And in the Afrocentric perspective, Egypt is not just the fountainhead or the grandfather of Greco-Roman culture. It's actually the grandfather of West African culture as well. So, religions like Ifa, for example, are, according to a lot of Afrocentric scholars, are part of the continuation of the Egyptian mystery school tradition. So it kind of had a few different branches. And some people even think that there's a relationship between the ancient Hindu or like Vedic philosophies and the Egyptian mystery schools. But a lot of that gets pretty speculative. And so, yeah, I was studying a lot of these things at that time. I was studying surrealism. That started in high school. I was really interested at the end of high school and beginning of college. I was also studying through the music, frankly, through marijuana and through some conversations with some real folks. I was studying Rastafari as an African mutation of Christianity and the Hebrew and biblical tradition. And really as a Black liberation theology, in liberation theology's question is basically like how, like, it's so funny nowadays that a lot of people are trying to make a new imperial Christianity in the United States, right? They're the United States is a Christian nation deal, and then it's married to the red, white, and blue and the flag, and the president has to be a Christian, and we're the biggest, most powerful, and we simultaneously have to be the biggest, most powerful empire in the world. Okay, that's creating another imperial Christianity. And Christianity it didn't start as an imperial religion. It started in the hood. Jesus rolled with the poor and the disgraced. And he taught the high class of the society to respect the low class. And the Hebrews repeatedly were an oppressed people. They were repeatedly a captive people that had to fight their way out. And so when Black people got their hands on the Bible and we could actually read it, we were like, wait, this is about us. Whether some people interpreted that literally or some people interpreted that figuratively. I'm more from the figurative school. And so the Rastafarians saw in the Hebrew, in biblical scriptures, a picture of their own situation. And they saw that the God in that depicted in the Bible was a God that came to the rescue of people in oppressed positions. And so the liberation theology school is basically saying, how can Christianity come to the aid of the oppressed? How can Christianity be a guide, an assistant, a strengthener of the oppressed? And how can Christianity help call out the oppressors? Which is, if you look in the Bible, there is ample evidence. Now, there's other things in there too. Because sometimes God tells the people to destroy the indigenous people. Right? That's part of what's going on in Palestine right now. People are talking about Amalek. Right? When the Hebrews came out of the desert, I think I have this right, and they came into Canaan, and there's this passage in there where the God of the Bible says, you stomp every last child into the ground. So both of those are in there. But there's a lot in the Bible that supports the uplifting of oppressed people. So Black people took that on. They took that on in the forest. They took it on with the meditative assistance of ganja, and they took it on by a real encounter with their situation and a revival of African rhythmic speech and music. And Rastafarianism was born.
Did you meet like elders when you were in college? You were in the tradition and start learning with them, or?
I did a few. I had a few. I started kind of on my own, like most Black suburban kids, started just listening to Bob Marley, and I would never say that I wasn't a Rastafarian, because there are certain commitments I just couldn't make. I'm just not a good follower.
It's good to have that awareness.
Yeah. But there was a huge energetic influence that came over me. And one of the teachings was that, this is a time of prophecy and that we have to be the living embodiments of prophecy. you know, and it helped constellate this sort of oppositional sort of like, oh, the United States and the Western world as this imperial force that posed itself as the truth and really has created a lot of confusion. So that was really important to me. And it was an important transition out of the church between middle school or high school and college. And it, go ahead.
No, I was just thinking, I'm just trying to follow your story. So like meeting the Rastafari elders or just like learning about these things helped you to transition out of the church
Yeah, I think
during this
so.
time period. Yeah.
Yeah. And most of it was through the music, but I had a few, I had a peer who was, I would say, initiated into Rastafari. And then I had one elder who I had to just over a period of a summer had several encounters with who brought me into the real deal.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, and then the music itself, you know, and then that really actually got me into the spiritual depth behind what was happening in the entire 1960s and 70s through all the music, black and white music, you know, which from my point of view, and I don't think this is controversial, black music turned on white music and it fathered white music. You know, black music fathered, you know, rock and roll, jazz, funk, hip hop. I mean, it didn't father it, it was, but I'm saying in terms of white people's experience with it. And then that the music that was created and the interplay between black and white people. And now I'm actually learning some too native people in the Americas. That music went all over the world and helped reshape the consciousness of people all over the world.
Oh,
I mean, it
totally.
did, you know?
Absolutely.
And then that music also paired with the giant kind of spiritual shifting that went with the transmission of spiritual teachings from the Eastern world to the Western world and the transmission of Western technology through colonization to other parts of the world as well. And so again, like a lot of the period that we're in now where we can have these conversations about what's your spiritual biography. It isn't just Christian. It isn't just this. It's multi-traditional, it's multi-faith because like this is the cultural context that we're in and it was created by these forces. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. That's cool. Yeah, I've never really seen all of those threads in the way that you just put it. That's really
Yeah.
good.
I mean, because it's our cultural subconscious.
Mm-hmm.
We listen to beats and we meditate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And we don't even think about where it came from.
Totally.
Right? So, okay, so I went from a stargazing child,
Mm-hmm.
a stargazing and I would say mythology reading child to uh a biblically questioning youth to a philosophically rejecting youth. Okay. And on the one hand, I had this like rigorous, like, I want to know the truth. I'm reading Sartre, I'm reading Nietzsche, I'm reading, you know, whatever, that stuff. And on the other hand, I was really into the mystical and inquiring into the mystical through poetry, through the study of esoteric literature, through Rastafari, through psychedelic experiences, you know, through just walking around and listening and being open in my environment.
Totally.
And
Well, I
then
have a question.
go ahead.
So, when you were 10, you had the experience with the stars of the clock is ticking, and there was almost this message passed into you of like, there's a thing that you need to do.
Yeah.
When you were older and you're doing all of this research and education and immersing yourself in all these different traditions, did the sense of what it is you need to do start to kind of come together?
Yeah, it did kind of. Can I read a poem or two for you?
Yeah, that'd be
Okay.
great.
All right. It did kind of come together. And I think, let's see, let me find one or two. Okay. All right. All right. So this was that same time period. Okay.
Yes.
And I'm going to read two.
Okay, do it. Yeah.
Um, and out of that time period, it was like At first, I was like, is God real? And then I was like, is there an afterlife? Is there a soul? And when I start to meditate on those things, I really start to get the feeling not just that there was an afterlife, but that there was a pre life.
Yeah.
And that the pre life, like I had the feeling of having come into this world like with a purpose, basically.
Yeah.
I had a strong destiny feeling. And I think that was part of what, when I was looking at the stars when I was 10, that's what got activated, is this destiny feeling of like, you're here and it is now time to begin to try to enact what you came to enact.
Mm-hmm.
So on my 19th birthday, I started meditating. I started to imagine, honestly, my parents conceiving me. And
Or
then, yeah, weird. And the mood that they were in and how that might have influenced the child that got selected to be born. So years later, I wrote this poem, and it's called Conception. Okay. Um, Soul rode in on them Stevie Wonder, Inner Vision, Blues into Violet, Transcendental Meditation, California 70s, Feel Good, Change the Nation's Vibrations. Church moan of my pops, mom's wish upon a star constellation. The mystery of cosmic rhythm. It ain't just mental. Learn the double Dutch sun moon jig. Learn my heartbeat as drum in ecosystem polyrhythm. My breath is whistle, voice as a strain, a grain of soul. Born into the bloodline of the blue brooding people, the yellow hallelujah wing soul gravity into sunshine people. To perfect my little boogie, to align it with the picture show mental musics on carousels swing through the ethers, to send love through my fingers. At a time when the earth presses her monuments up from the depths, when the sky kiss solidify electric geodesic bubble skin. What am I in all this? Like yourselves, a nerve, a feeler, a cilia of this great round body. So yeah, right. I was born in California, right? So soul rode in,
yeah, for sure.
right? Church moan of my pops, my mom's wish upon a star constellation, right? And then I got another one. This one's tone is a little darker. Okay. So this one's called Tolkien. And I think I named it that because, like, this is a short book, but it's like very out there and it's like creates its own little world. Okay. And I think Tolkien is like somebody created its own little world. So, Tolkien. Previously, our task was as destroyers of an era. As with the present, indeed, we appear at every dusk or dawn, depending. Away teams, ephemeral engineers anchoring structures into the mist, tuning souls to become receptive to new architectures of perception. Blueprints attractive of matter. Stories that play out as cultures. Pictures encoded deep. Components, organs, psychic machinery, and anatomy. Till now, I dwell between the cracks, inhabited ruins of an amusement park, crumble ignored, subsisting off a diet of smoke, sugar, and exhaustion.
I could picture that so vividly.
Hmm.
Is the amusement park kind of like the bread and circus of this world? What do you
Yes.
think? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Right? That's just like everything right now, short attention span, keep you entertained while all types of terrible things
Yeah,
happen.
and it's crumbling.
Yes, and it's crumble ignored. Right.
Crumble ignored.
Right. And I live in a hole in that.
Yeah,
But
crack.
right. Exactly. But really, what am I here? What am I supposed to be up to here? I'm supposed to be helping tune souls to new architectures of perception.
Or what in the other one you said, send love through my fingers?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, what is it like to read that out loud now? I'm sure that you've read through it so many times writing the book, but what did it feel like to read it out just now?
You know, it's funny that every time I read them, I think it actually lines my energy system up. As I keep reading them, it lines me up.
Yeah.
Because, like, I think they're actually, like, okay, one theory is that our souls, first of all, that our souls speak oftentimes in pictures and symbols. And the symbol is not necessarily the thing that it appears to be. It is a meditative gateway into a network of energies, maybe. But the way that our souls can communicate, which is the soul's probably more that network of energies, but the way that it can communicate to an embodied and conscious being is through these pictures. And that the soul and the embodied consciousness create a chain of pictures. It could be pictures, it could be sounds, it could be movements. They create a chain of pictures between its reality, and your reality. And if you climb those chain of pictures, you kind of can get up into it. And so those pictures kind of belong to the relationship between you and the soul. And so every time I read these words that were the best that I could at that time translate the pictures, it puts me into that chain. And
Well,
then it
it's
starts.
interesting, like listening to you reading it, you write it the way you're describing the thing you're talking about right now. Because it is almost like just like a couple of words illuminating one picture, and then there's a couple of words illuminating another picture. It's like very like, I don't know if staccato is the right way to put it, but it's like picture, 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 picture. It's like very much like that.
Yeah.
Listening to it.
Totally. And it could work different for other people. Some people's style might be more drawn out and lyrical, but that's the thing. It's like, to me, what poetry is about really is about your soul's language.
For sure.
It's about learning to listen to and speak your soul's language, and then learning to listen to and listen to the speech of other souls' languages. Right. And then,
yeah, totally.
Right. And then I think the soul has a blueprint for what it wants to contribute and what it needs to learn in any given lifetime. Right. Like astrology is another approach to that. Your birth chart is a metaphorical picture of your soul's intentions in a particular lifetime.
Yeah, wait, am I remembering correctly that like you are an astrologer, or like you like where am I remembering that from?
Yeah.
Like you would, is that another thing you would call yourself?
Yeah. And that evolved out of the stargazing, and that evolved out of the philosophy, and that evolved out of the poetry, right? Because if you've got to approach astrology with a sense of poetry as well. You can't be, I don't think, literal about it. It's a set of symbols, okay? And it evolved actually out of the philosophy, because there is a dimension, and some people will laugh this off, but there is a dimension of rigorous thinking that goes into it as well. So yes, that's something that over time that's evolved. And these are the kinds of things in my spiritual life, and even in my familial biography to an extent, it's kind of tricky, because I come from, on my father's side, from a family of pastors, that the Christian transmission is strong in my life and in my body. But for whatever reason, this soul came into this incarnation more to deal with the things of the cosmos and the galactic, right? And to bring that nighttime star energy down into this world and bring it into relationship with traditional spiritualities and other things.
Oh
Like
my God,
that's,
totally.
but my methodology, not my methodology, my expressive style is the expressive style of the like of the Black Baptist tradition in a way. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm a student of Western philosophy and I have it rolling in my system. But when I actually get into like when I'm in class teaching, at a certain point,
Mm-hmm.
preacher activates and it's just a channeling situation,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Mm-hmm.
So like
There's a lot of streams.
right. And what I meant to say with that is the astrologer is a little bit in a rubbing like in a abrasive relationship with the traditional Christian, right? Because traditional Christianity says you can't engage in these things.
Because it might be like fortune telling or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Whereas I just think that I don't know. I think the spiritual traditions evolve. And that's the other way I would describe my spiritual beliefs is evolutionary.
100% with you.
You know, I another philosopher theologian who's been really influential on me, Teilhard de Chardin. I, if you haven't checked his work out, beautiful work. He really tried to fuse Christianity and evolutionary biology,
Oh, that's cool.
and he did this in the 1930s, right when
Oh, cool.
it wasn't really cool.
Yeah.
You know, it got him.
Fringe.
Yeah, it got him. The Catholic Church said your writings can't be published until you're dead.
Whoa.
So he couldn't.
He's like, great, I'll become a saint.
You know, they're just now starting to recognize him.
Whoa.
But his vision was in part that God or spirit or consciousness reveals itself through the process of creatures and humans, and then whatever we're birthing through the process of us becoming more conscious.
For sure. For sure.
You know.
Wow. Well, so is this a good time to maybe talk about your perspective on Christianity since we're here? Because we were talking about that earlier, like, because you were like, maybe I'm not traditionally Christian, but you were just saying that you come from a lineage of pastors and you feel this Baptist sort of energy coming out in class. And so, like, I'd be curious to hear, like, what is that like for you and your personal expression and your personal experience?
Yeah. So, you know, there's definitely, excuse me, there's definitely a cultural dimension to it. You know, I think as African American people, like Christianity the church was the central institution for Black people until the 70s, pretty much. And so just on a cultural level, like, even though in a lot of ways I've been severed and I've purposely stepped away, it's still in me. And then as a member of the broader American society, Christmas, things like that, you know. But also as I started to study some of Rudolf Steiner's work and his view of the Christ as a cosmic being, and this is consistent with a lot of interpretations of Christianity, and as a being that actually incarnated into the earth and is working an alchemical transformation on the substance of the earth, including flesh, maybe beginning with flesh, and then from beginning with flesh out into the entirety of the substance of the earth. And then also as the Christ figure, whether you believe in it as an actual thing or person or historical personage or spiritual entity, as a mythological image to meditate on, as a person who gives their life for the betterment of their community and the world.
Like a figure that, whether or not he was physically incarnate or not, we can look to as an example of what we can become.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Like, to me, it doesn't matter. The literal interpretation is not necessary or important. And I think it's an obstruction personally at this point in history. People don't, this is a scientific age
Mm-hmm.
so far. Okay. So I think if you approach it, say, from like a psychological, Jungian psychological perspective, a depth psychology perspective, these are dream figures, and you meditate on the dream figure. Okay. Iron Man's a dream figure. Black Panther's a dream figure. Wonder Woman's a dream figure. They don't have to be real for you to derive spiritual nourishment from them.
Mm-hmm.
And so the figure of the Christ is one of the most prevalent ancient mythological images in this part of the world. Yes, has it caused massive harm? People have done massive harm in the name of Christ, and they're doing it now. And that part of Christianity, I think it's irresponsible of Christians to not be awake to that. I think it's irresponsible of the church to not recognize its destructive history. And
not just pretend it's not there.
No, and that's the move of the American evangelicals who are trying to take over the government at this time. I'm not saying it's all of them, but there's a faction of them that's trying to take over our government right now, and they just want to whitewash the entirety of our history and theirs at the same time that they want to claim all this stuff about Western civilization. It's just not honest.
No.
So as a Christian person, I think we have to look at and reckon with the fact that Christianity has been used as a battering ram to destroy and torture people like berserkness. Whereas the real, to me, fruit of it is to meditate on the figure of the Christ, and then, as said, is to take up that way. You take up the cross, as in, here are your life circumstances. Here are the things that life is calling on you to do. Even the image of the cross itself, okay? The vertical represents the spiritual life, okay? Human beings for eons have related to the spiritual life in terms of verticality, whether that vertical went up or down and in.
Well, we stand on 2 feet.
Exactly. That's right. And the image of the human being is an image of the cross. Mm-hmm. The cross the ankh is the same. The tree is the same. Okay? That's us. Even if you look at the sunrise in a way, there it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the resurrection in a way.
Yeah.
Right? And so, and the cross is hard because you've got the vertical and then you have this horizontal. Mm-hmm. You're a spiritual person. You want to do good. You want to blah, blah, blah. But man, is the world tough. Man, is it tough to actually be in relationships with people. Man, there's a saying in the Bible that basically it's like the world is controlled by the devil. Okay? Mm-hmm. Now, you can get really tweaked about that, or you can kind of look at empire. Look at the powers that be in our world. Look at how so many people are tempted towards materialism, and not in its good sense, not a healthy materialism, mm-hmm. not a reverence of the flesh of the earth.
100%.
And the need that we have for that. We need clothes. We need shelter.
Yeah, totally.
Everyone does. And that's actually, to me, that's the Christian act, is to make sure that everyone has it. So if we're going to align the world with what we know is true in our souls, that takes work. And that work hurts, in my experience. And that hurt is the cross. That's the pain. It hurts.
Oh, like Jesus hanging on the cross.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in that sense, I relate to the figure of the Christ. I'm not saying that as in, I'm a great blah, blah, blah. I'm a dude in a crack. As I live in a crack, but that's, to me, that's the, and it's, and then the other thing that I deeply believe I believe, and this partly comes from the Rastafari tradition, I believe in the manifestation of the kingdom of heaven on earth. And I don't find it in that many other traditions. And I feel like the idea has influenced other traditions. Now, I'm not trying to claim a special, exclusive specialness of Christianity. I'm not trying to go back to that. What I'm saying is there's a desire within human beings that I think is it's not just based on an illusory desire of the ego to have control over everything. That's what empire is.
Mm-hmm.
Empire is a fake version of the kingdom of God that wants to organize the entire world around what it wants. Whereas the kingdom of God or the queendom of God, you can call it whatever you want, paradise is first of all, it's the recognition that it's already here. This is a beautiful planet. It's a beautiful world. People are beautiful. Animals are beautiful. Water is beautiful. It's a miracle, all of it, that it's even here. And then humanity could put the crown jewel in creation if we got our shit together.
Oh, I feel emotional.
Yeah, it's emotional. And to me, that's actually the real impulse behind social justice.
Yeah.
It's to treat each other, it's to make sure that everybody gets fed. We all feed each other. It's to make sure it's, you don't get one loaf and eat it all yourself. You cut it up. This is what Jesus did. He cut the loaves up and he made it so everybody could eat. And in our times, what does that translate to? That means everyone deserves respect. That means we could circulate water instead of hogging it. It means we could circulate electricity. Electricity works better when it circulates.
Yes.
It means that we could create a situation on this earth where the human beings have the basic foundation of what they need as physical entities and as spiritual beings to actually grow into images of God. That's what we're supposed to be and that's what we are, is images of God. And we spend all this time crushing each other's wings.
Or crushing each other's wills.
Yeah.
What do you think it would take, or what do you think it will take for the queendom of God, in your words, to be manifest in whatever way that will be? What do you think it'll take for us to get our shit together?
Well, this is why the book of Revelation scares me so deeply. Because I hope it doesn't take all of us being on our knees in ashes before we really get it.
Yeah.
And see, here's the thing.
Yeah.
We're close at this time in history. We're close. Because we're now in a place where, through the agency of this podcast and all this stuff, we are now, all people around the planet are in an interchange relationship now. It is not a fair or fun or necessarily a good relationship. It is wrong relationship. It is not right relationship. Mm-hmm. But we are all in a relationship around the planet now. Mm-hmm. And so, in my view, it means we're close now.
And the pressure is on environmentally, too.
The pressure,
the pressure's on.
We have created. See, here's the thing. Whether you believe in it or not, this is part of what's so crazy about spirituality and myth and all this. The stories that we tell ourselves and that live in our subconscious, we act out. We translate into action. Okay, it's poetry. It never is a direct translation from the poetic to the real. It is a translation, and information is lost in the translation. Okay, but we have this story that we have to burn the whole earth to the ground before we get it. And so there are people now that want to burn the whole earth to the ground because they think that's going to bring about the getting it. We're not, so that's not, prophecy is supposed to warn you what not to do.
Yeah. Damn. Damn.
So I hope, I pray, and in my little ways, I'm working towards, and I think a lot of our movements around the world, consciously, half consciously, unconsciously, a lot of our spiritual traditions around the world, a lot of our artistic traditions around the world are working towards the time when people around the world, there's enough of us that get it, that we can sway these freaking emperors and these people who, because here's my belief. I think the queendom of heaven is part of the evolutionary design of this planet. This planet is a caterpillar that wants to become a butterfly. And I believe other planets have done it already. Okay? I don't go too hard on that. I don't go too hard on the Pleiadians, blah, blah, blah. You can get too literal with all that stuff. Then the Pleiadians.
It's a big universe.
It's a big universe.
It's a big universe.
And we don't even know what the nature of it is. I don't think extraterrestrials may not be material entities like.
Yeah, totally. It could be a different realm of reality.
Absolutely.
100%.
Absolutely. And the gateway to it could be the inner dimension rather than a rocket ship. I don't know. Or it could be that you fly deep enough in a rocket ship and then you'll see the shit behind your eyes. I don't know.
Wow. Okay.
Really, I think we got to start thinking like that now.
Totally.
We're in that space. I could go off in several directions, but I'm gonna try to keep it back to.
I know we have a few more minutes. Yeah.
So I believe that this is what the Earth is trying to become, and the reason why it exists in so many different cultures and different iterations is because it's coming up through us as the evolutionary impulse of the Earth itself. Our ego mistranslates that as empire. And then the empires throughout history have tried to realize it by forcing people into a non-consensual, unified relationship.
Mm.
You understand what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
A non-consensual, they want the whole world to speak their language. They want the whole world to do their religion.
Homogeny.
Exactly. They want the whole world to use their money.
Mm-hmm.
They want the whole world to have their microchip in their head.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because they want to force human beings to be in a telepathic relationship, except they want to have that shit by remote control.
Right.
And that's where I think we're actually close to those beings that through their spiritual arrogance think that they can lead the world towards the kingdom of heaven, but they're not soft enough. They haven't become like children. As the Bible says, don't become like a child. You got to be soft and hard at the same time.
Okay, you know what kids do?
What?
They ask why.
You got to be, and you have to be allowed to ask why.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. The whole time you were talking, I was like, okay, here's an antidote. Questioning, rigorous thinking, asking why. Yes. Homogeny can't thrive when people are not asking why.
No. And I think if you bring the rigorous thinking with the poetic together and the embodied, then you can actually get at these things in a way that you can't without those crossing.
100%.
So my hope is that we come up to the wire and we get faced with the false image of what it is that we're trying to create, and we can choose the real, so that we don't have to burn this place to the ground. And then in the ashes, in the next 6 generations, 8 generations, be like, God, those people in the middle of the 21st century blew the whole place up, flooded the whole place. And now when I see, I fucking look across the desolate earth, and then I see Hanna, and I look in her eyes, and I'm like, that's a child of God. And if whatever I have, I share it with you, and we try to regrow this world together.
Mm-hmm.
Because that could be how it goes. We could be so desperate and in such a desperate situation that that's what makes us see that that's the child of God right there that's standing in front of me. And we should be building the kingdom of God together as human beings. We might have to get there, and it might take billions of us dying, but it doesn't have to.
It doesn't have to.
No. And we could do it right now.
I know.
Billions of us.
Okay, so because we both live in Colorado, Front Range, so it's okay if you don't remember this in your mind, but when you drive into Golden, down from Boulder, there's these statues that look like nonsense, but then right when you drive by, it becomes an eagle, and then it turns into nonsense again. It's like a bunch of crazy shapes, and then all of a sudden it becomes an eagle, and then it turns into crazy shapes again.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, I love those statues. I use them as a metaphor all the time because you're saying like we need to be faced with the fact that we're chasing after a false image. But in my mind, it's like we just need to turn our heads like 5 degrees to the left.
That's right.
And so
right.
it's like the statue is nonsense until like the perfect angle, and then it becomes nonsense. Do you see what I'm saying?
That's right. Yes.
Yeah.
And we're at one of those periods of history we're about to line up and see it correct.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the other thing. I think it's a time expiration thing. Like, I think we might pass it.
The eagle is like right there. Yeah.
We could. I think we could miss it. I think we're at this moment of history where, okay, if we can shift from empire.
Oh yeah, because there's AI.
Yeah, and I try, in a way, I tried to talk about a lot of this stuff in this book. I tried to. I was kind of dealing with this feeling I had of like, there are these futures that are coming towards humanity. There are things that we are creating or co-creating that may as well be extraterrestrial. And if we and part of the story of this book is a long time ago, we rejected some of these things and a part of ourselves, which I think is the feminine face of God, I'll say. We rejected these things. And now they're back. And if we can accept them in a certain way, then together we can actually we can unlock certain potentials in the earth. But they can't be used lovelessly.
Mm-hmm.
If they're used lovelessly.
Well, that's been the problem.
And that's been the problem.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You know, and so we have the stuff now. We have it now.
Totally. We have every resource we could possibly dream of.
We have it right now.
Totally.
And in the right place, in that right eagle alignment, before we pass it, we could set up something so that the people that come after us 7, 14, 21 generations from now, we wouldn't even recognize them. They would be so radiant.
I think that's a beautiful note for us to start ending on. Thank you so much.
I hope this was what you're looking for. I don't know. It
was beyond my expectations.
Yeah.
And now you're going to see those statues when you drive into Golden. You'll never unsee it.
Totally.
You'll never unsee it. Well, I want to respect your time. And so let me just ask you one more question before we go. Did anything come up for you personally in speaking today? Like something new that you like dug out of your biography, or yeah, like what was that like for you to just like tell your story today?
I think I'm still in the healing process around bringing all the different spiritual roads that I've walked and footsteps I've taken and streams together. And I think it's kind of healing to be able to go back to 10 and go back to stargazers and go back to church and go back to Rastafari and go to Buddhism and go to rock and roll and go to the movements. I think it was kind of healing just to, I'm still putting it together in my own spirit, you know? And I don't think that speaking, words can be in vain, but speaking can also be life, you know? And I feel like we tapped into a stream of life.
I felt it.
Yeah.
I felt it. There were a bunch of times when you were speaking, I kept saying this sometimes I say things in my head over and over again. And I was like, Ramon was born knowing things. You were just born knowing things. Like those poems that you wrote when you were so young, I was like, you just like were born knowing things. And so I see that in you and I hear that in you.
I think we all are.
I think so too, but I think there's some people that maybe the veil's a little thinner. And we all can have the veil thinned, for sure. That's what we're all capable of. But yeah, there's some people where maybe there's like a pinky toe still in the other realm or something. And so I just felt that in hearing your story today.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for this.
You're welcome. It's been so nice to hear your story because I just admired you so much as a teacher. in college at Naropa. And so, you never really get to hear the story of your
Mm-mm.
teachers, because
Yeah.
they're just in their role and they're more interested in you and your journey and propping you up.
Mm.
And so it's been really nice to learn about you in this way.
And I want to say this last thing. I consider teaching to be part of my spiritual practice in my religion, in the sense of like really trying to see God in the students.
I bet.
I really am. I'm really listening for what's there in each student that I can hear, and trying to help them bring it forward.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah, I think I felt that in you. And I do remember, I think it was like you were maybe my like capstone
Yes.
advisor.
Yeah.
It was so long ago, I can't always remember the details, but we spent a lot of time talking about Star Trek. I
Yeah.
remember this.
Absolutely.
And so, maybe if you come back, I actually want to hear you go off about the galactic theories and all these sorts of things we
I'd
can
be
totally
happy
talk
to.
about.
I'd be happy to. I'd be happy to go off on a sci-fi Afrofuturist,
Yes, please.
new age, whatever. I'd be happy to.
I know, actually, earlier I was like, oh, I wish we could just spend this whole time talking about Afrofuturism,
Mm,
actually. And so
yeah.
I would really like to hear more about that from you.
Let's please. And actually in February, we got something coming up that I would love to kind of try
Plug
to,
it.
yeah, plug it. So if you want to, I got, I'd be happy to come back later in the fall, in the winter, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Yeah, definitely. Okay, cool. Yeah, because season 2 is probably going to come out like later this year anyway. And
Okay.
so that's perfect. Well, before we go, is there anything you want the listeners to know about you? Like if they want to go to Naropa and be your student, or like what else, like your book, like is there anything you want to shamelessly plug?
Yeah, I mean, I think I would just say, yeah, Naropa University is a place where people are doing spiritual seeking and trying to combine it with education. And there's some guidance there and some peership there. It's not a perfect place, but it's a good place.
Yeah.
I put out this little book, Drama of the Planets. It's a short poetry book if you've got a short attention span. And I think there's some food in it.
Yeah.
My wife and I are involved in climate justice work in Boulder County and beyond through our social impact business, Once and Future Green. And then I think the last thing I would say is really blow on the embers of your spirit at this time, because it's a dark time.
Mm-hmm.
And we really need to lean on one another and on the other within us.
Mm-hmm.
I think to see our way and make our way and have the will to face these times.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I feel my spiritual practice has been for times like this in my mind. Mm-hmm. And so this is the time to go real deep.
Totally.
Really commit. So it's been awesome.
Yeah. Thank you, Hanna.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for being here.
Okay.
Bye.
Take care.
All right, you guys, that's a wrap. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you loved this episode. All of the information for Ramon is in the show notes, including how to check out his book. And, like I said in the beginning, this is the last episode of season 1. And if we want to keep some momentum going with GRACEPILLED, do me a favor and share your favorite episode of GRACEPILLED with a friend. And even better, if you want to put the cherry on the cake, on the ice cream sundae of season 1, rate the show. Give it 5 stars on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Comment on YouTube. Just do something to show that you're like, yes, I'm invested in this and I want season 2 to arrive. So give me some juice so I can put some energy in here. I would super appreciate it. And then other than that, I'm here. I still exist even though season 1 is over. You can work with me one-on-one. I have drop-in sessions on my website where you can book a call with me and we can see how it feels to talk with each other. The drop-in rate is not the same as my regular rate, by the way. So it's a lower price when you work with me regularly. And I have Patreon, which is my massive library of talks and courses. We've got 60 talks and courses. It would take you 6 months to get through it if you listen to something like every other day. So there's a lot of material in there. And at the time of recording this, I still have workbooks for the Patreon. And so when I first released the Patreon, I made literal workbooks for the core 24 talks in my Patreon so that you can literally use this journal to answer questions to help you to integrate the material. And so when you sign up at the $25 tier, it's all $25, but the workbook tier, if you're in the United States, I will send you a workbook for free as a gift for joining the Patreon. So that's all happening. And then other than that, I'm just doing my thing, just hanging out, cooking season 2. And I appreciate you all so much for listening. If you're still here, I love you. And we will see you for season 2.